Are you getting me through the room right now, Peter?
Are you
Oh,
getting me through the room right now?
there it is. Okay, so looks like we swapped something. We hit the right button, so looks like we're all set for today. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Engineering the Markets. My name is Jared. It is September 22nd, 2022. Happy Thursday, or maybe for some, little bit of picking up the pieces after yesterday's FOMC. We certainly saw the characteristics of an FOMC day, both in the volatility that the market experienced, some of the morning trade, which I would say from a directional sense was pretty lackluster. Couple of key stocks, certainly making some moves, but ultimately the S&P and the Nasdaq was trading relatively flat and fairly close to the weekly close, which you can see here. We actually opened on last Friday's close. So the market really hasn't moved for about 3 days. If you kind of just look at some of the closure price, we've had ups and downs, and there's been a balance range of about 3 days, but it's been centered around September 16th close. Yesterday, of course, was the day to break out of balance. And intraday, we saw a couple of movement ranges that I think were well understood by the option market. If you recall, yesterday we were talking about how the S&P and the Nasdaq had anywhere from $5 to $6 of intraday price expected move. That's what the option market was expecting, and the volatility readings kind of gave us some indication where some of the core trade might live in this market. Now, as we look at the SPX, we certainly still have a little bit of downside potential. This is more for the week with our 37.57 downside expected move. But if you're looking at the S&P ETF, the SPY itself, we did see some after hours and overnight trade that crested near these relative price levels if you're kind of modeling it as a 1/10 product. So obviously breaking out of balance is important, because if a market is balanced in between highs and lows, the breakouts can have a lot of release, a lot of energy, as market participants have been hedging or positioning in those ranges for a couple of sessions. We've seen a couple of examples of this before. We obviously had the most critical June balance range that broke very severely to the downside. We even kind of reestablished in these areas before another breakout. This was sort of in the direction of the current trend, or the previous trend. And then we've even seen some sort of mid-range balance areas. These are just zones where you'll have intraday sessions that maybe start high and then pull back in, usually tagging the top end of balance. You'll maybe open low and then pull back up. That's the idea that certain gap downs and gap ups can move counter the overall open. So when you're in balance, it can obviously be a little challenging to manage some of the short-term trade, but breaking out of balance is what's important, and it can put a lot of positions under pressure. As we saw here, lots of gap up momentum here, finishing our trend. And then of course here, probably our most significant downside move in the market this entire year. So wanted to call out what balance does to a market first before we kind of dig into yesterday's trade, because there's a couple characteristics that we might want to call out from yesterday's move. First and foremost, we started to lose, in the morning session, we really weren't going anywhere. We had, just a high and a low kind of established for most of the trade. During the actual statement release, the market dropped. And I think during this drop, if you're quick to get into the momentum, or maybe if you're stepping into a low of day type of opportunity, gives you enough sort of room to move the market in your favor, towards some of those levels. But if you remember yesterday, we talked about how the volatility indicated about a $5 move, 5 to 6. 5 is conservative, 6 is probably the tail end. And what I wanted to call out is you got to be careful assuming that once that move is done, just because we're in some sort of bearish context, that we're going to immediately continue down. And as an intraday trader, you want to be aware of that down here, because if you're positioning for more downside, the market can easily rip against you. And obviously, as the press conference started, there was no more downside. The market had moved its $5 extreme and then started to move counter in the opposite direction. Now, we didn't quite get $5 to the upside. I would say the bulls kind of gave up a little sooner than that, but you can see that we also crested our highs. And this is where it can be extremely challenging as we're kind of back and forth on an intraday. You actually want to position yourself either mid-range to take advantage of an existing counter move, or you want to try and counter near the extremes, which is what a lot of traders did yesterday. There's a couple of traders, including myself, who are actually buying near these lows. I chose the NASDAQ as my instrument of choice, and I was positioning long in the face of this massive sell-off. Obviously, the market is looking a little bit back. I could have easily stopped out near the lows, but I knew this is what volatility told me to do. Market had already moved its expected move. I was playing back inside somewhere near previous day close, which was somewhere around, I want to say 289 NASDAQ. And then of course the 290 and higher is going to put you back into a more bullish context. So you get that low to high transition. And then of course, you often can see things like some wide trading channels, which I do have marked here. Now, the actual press conference kind of held the market elevated for a period, but as we started to round things out and the press conference ended, we did see that final slide into the close. You knew something was wrong for the bulls whenever you started to lose things like your channel support, and especially when you started to break below previous day close and just slide through the lower end of the channel. Usually on these channel breaks, you're targeting the lower bounds. The market can go lower because you get momentum in your favor, but anytime a channel, bullish or bearish, breaks, you want to go for the opposite side. Where did the channel start forming? And if anyone watched my recap yesterday with Brian, I actually talked about this concept inside of a smaller trading channel during the morning session. It was bullish, obviously uptrending with some wide pullbacks, but once the channel ends, you definitely want to be looking for the lows to be tested. And that's just usually indicative that the bullish targets and trade has been selling throughout that entire channel. It's too distributive to hold any significant upside. Same thing with the bearish channel, obviously, but we've been seeing a lot more bullish channels. So I wanted to talk about that first and foremost from a market profile perspective. I don't necessarily consider myself a market profile trader, but if you're looking at something like the volume profile yesterday, it's indicative of extremes. It's a balance range and then an extreme breakdown. Usually when you see this, especially as the market closes near the lows or the highs, you want to be thinking that the only reason we stopped going down is simply because we ran out of time. Usually when you have these sort of wilder trading sessions and yet there is a strong conviction into the close, we'll certainly pull back, and you can kind of see where the pullback is leading us right now. It's back into yesterday's value zone, but you also want to be thinking that unless we start to hold near the after hours levels, we might actually see a little bit more downside. The market certainly had some conviction on yesterday's slide. So some areas to watch are obviously all of our sort of whole dollar levels. NASDAQ at 280 looks pretty important on the intraday and the after hours. And then the SPY, I was looking more at 375. We did breach after hours, but we're back inside. So I will be looking to see how this sort of pre-market range resolves itself, more to get a clue of how to trade today, because as we know, volatility is starting to elevate. A couple of last notes. I'm not going to really talk too much about what the Fed discussed. The statement is available for anyone who's interested. They did raise their 2023 projections. So we are looking at potentially more 75-point rate hikes throughout the end of the year. It looks like they might be slowing a bit in December, but as far as what they're projecting in 2023, they keep raising their estimates. And as we can tell, these higher quantitative tightening cycles, these more aggressive rate hikes are structurally fighting the Fed. It's definitely pressure against any sort of bullish trade. Bulls have to be extremely careful in this environment because usually these sell-offs occur quickly and they usually break pivots after a rally. They come from highs and they crack lows. That's what's important. 1 to 2 days of rally and then basically release to the downside. So as far as volatility is concerned, I talked through it more in the structure of the volatility futures market. And one thing I was concerned with as we kept sliding is that we haven't really seen volatility go into backwardation. This is where your vol futures, October in this case is your most active forward contract. That pricing is now slightly higher than November. So your OCC is trading higher than your NOV. When that happens, try not to read too much into single day price activity. It can be extremely challenging not to read too much into, setups like that. But during volatility like this, you're often going to see back and forth trade that really throws a lot of traders around. Instead, be thinking that the market has to stabilize in a vol range, usually one that's going to be defined by price, but needs to come from an expansion of volatility. The market has to actually get wild for a period. We just barely crested into that scenario. We usually see some pretty extreme lower bounds after the volatility comes out of backwardation. It's, a storm comes, lots of rain and thunder. The recap yesterday was actually kind of a nice background for what we're experiencing. And then once all that storm settles, we get a little bit of sunshine, so it's definitely a period to be careful. It's also true that if you're not hedged yet, it's going to cost you more in this environment for downside protection. Usually, as I mentioned before, in the face of a rally, that's when you want to put on your hedges. You want to give it time. 30 to 60 days is, optimal for a lot of the shorter term trade. And the goal is not to time the hedge. The goal is that volatility tends to cycle, just like the marketplace. And we've seen relevant cycles in both vol futures, coming off of lows and highs. Definitely some up and down trade here. Whether you're looking at the VIX, hitting an inflection point yesterday, there was a bit of a spike into about 30. We saw there's some weird halting going on here. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. And then of course, the market seeing more downside, as people are kind of reaching for a little bit of protection inside of volatility, starting to actually buy VIX calls, or basically VIX upside, because they believe the market's going to expand a little bit further, especially in about 30 days. So that's what's going on currently. Dollar is the same. We're still in an uptrend. We're still making new highs. So nothing really new here. A little bit of interesting behavior in the bond market. Now, once again, it's very short term, but something like a TLT, and especially inside of /ZB, we're actually seeing a slight reach for bonds right now, something that really hasn't had a bounce or an uptick in months. Let's just say a month and a half since August. There's a little bit of a fear trade going on right now. If the equity marketplace is not safe, dollar is already kind of a crowded trade. Where traders going to look for upside? They might be looking to the bond market. So be kind of aware of this and maybe consider how to set up a short-term trade here. Even if this bounce doesn't go very far, we do have a low to trade against. And the market seems to be somewhat reaching for a little bit of protection inside of a lower volatility marketplace like bonds, albeit it has been a interesting year for the bond market. So, with the dollar slipping, gold is still on a downward path. Really no sense in trying to time that until the dollar kind of settles into a high. Silver as well, albeit holding better. I'll be looking for dollar relief and silver upside, given that we do have a higher low scenario already. And no real signal risk on from HYG. So just kind of cycling through a little bit of the same, but a couple of changes yesterday. Slide into the close. Lots of balance break on yesterday's session. Vol going into flat, possible backwardation in the next couple days. And ultimately, the trend is the same. I mean, when the trend remains the same, you don't really have to comment on it too much. Bulls do not have control until they stop this downtrend, and they have to do it on a daily pivot. They have to change the daily trend for anyone to really be convinced of more upside. Otherwise, this continues to be a risk as we break lower. So with all that said, last 10 minutes here, if anyone has any questions or wants to look at anything, feel free. I am an open book here. Okay, Tesla. I figured the first stock would be Tesla. It always is. So, why is Tesla holding so well? There's more buyers than sellers. Don't try and complicate it much more than that. There has been a lot of OI keeping the Tesla option market elevated, but from a technical sense, what is Tesla trying to do? It's trying to break out from its August highs. It's August highs. Now, yesterday, you'll recall that I was looking short Tesla. We didn't really break into a confirmed pivot until FOMC. So Tesla has a very clear resistance that it's trying to get over. It's already bounced off of the 50-day, and it's held up much better during downturns in the market. So if you're looking to get long Tesla, what do you want to do? You probably want to wait for something like a head and shoulder structure against a previous support. Something like the weekly will give you a little bit of edge. You also want to understand that as the market keeps going lower, Tesla is going to probably continue rejecting against its resistance. It's just at the good location for downside. But as we've seen, this has been a more resilient stock. So, don't overcomplicate it. Tesla is stronger than the S&P over the past 2 weeks. But would you buy it at resistance? Probably not. You'd probably sell whatever you held to to get to your top side, and then you wait for another pullback because the market is still weak and you might get a better price. So, let's see. Can you take a look at Disney? Sure. Okay. What are some characteristics here? We have a pandemic low and we have a higher low relative. We bounced off of this, so it's tentative trend lines right now. We made a lower high on the monthly, which is in a downtrend, and we're coming back in. So the monthly right here is important because if we break that, we're more likely to come to the trend line than anything. Weekly, you know, I can see maybe a possible weekly higher low forming. We haven't had any indication of that. Everything is still kind of trending to the downside. And then the daily lost the 50. So there's no daily setup for a long, and like most of the market, most things are still selling. So yesterday was just another day for stocks to sell. You could start looking at your previous highs and lows, especially the high volume ones. You know, look at where Disney broke out earlier. This move right here was important and it caused a rally. But as we're coming back in, you need to see something like a defense somewhere if you want to buy it. Otherwise, you assume it keeps going down. Like, if bears have momentum, don't assume anything otherwise until you get to a level. Where do you see the market in 30 days? Where does the market see the market in 30 days? My opinion really doesn't matter. What is the market's opinion? In 30 days, the SPY is pricing anywhere from, trying to get my mouse cursor, it's about a $25 expected move right now. So let's say the market opens today at 378, plus or minus 25. That's what the market thinks. So if we're up 25 points, then the market's going to be above 400. If we're down 25 points, then the market's going to be at 350. Anywhere in between that would be normal. So, and bears have momentum right now, so, you know, testing June lows seems more likely as we go lower because it's closer. EMPH candle yesterday is a warning sign. Not really. We haven't lost trend. I mean, an advancing stock is not likely to continue advancing on a weekday. EMPH is an advancing stock right now. It's a strong stock, getting stronger. You know, there's a couple of examples like General Mills. This would be kind of like bucking the trend, but it had earnings. So, you know, you want to be looking for stocks that are maybe bucking the trend a bit, or weak stocks getting weaker. You know, if you don't want to be in a long scenario because you think the market's going to eventually drag it down, you want to be in weak stocks that continue to get weaker, like Meta. And, you know, short-term stuff, but it's the concept's the same. Like, look at what broke down yesterday. Google broke down. Google's a weak stock getting weaker. Amazon's a weak stock kind of getting weaker. It has room to fall, you know. There's no support coming in for a while. So how do you identify inflection points? Levels help, candle structures as well, and then changing trend confirms it. So here's a level on Amazon. And you'll notice that during this time period, as we come down, we stop selling and then we get out of balance. So it's an inflection point on the daily. Here's one as well. Now, this one might have been a little harder, but just like the rest of the market, I have clues that Amazon doesn't like the 200-day moving average. So I assume that if we get there, it can inflect and start going the opposite direction, even though it's a strong rally. It's the area where I expect it. So that's where you start profit taking / changing your position. Inflection points. Usually they're going to be on levels, but they don't have to be. You need to observe where things have happened before and make a decision based on current price activity and structure. You either take it when it happens or take it when the trend changes. Because if you're going for an inflection, you're going for the opposite side of the trade. SPY and Q levels for today. I'll go ahead and round out that since we're looking at some trade today. You have to be looking at the lows and the after hours, but I will say that there is a bullish defense right now. Do I want to trade into yesterday's lows? Not particularly. I probably want to see if they can maybe crest into it first, or I can try and risk something like a high to low trade, which is already kind of setting up in the morning. You can see how we expanded, hit resistance, pulled back in, and are trying to maybe come back to the top side. Doesn't mean we're going to blow the top off, but right now this is our high to low on a 5-minute or an hourly. A 5-minute too probably has it pretty clear. So, I want to be close to those levels to set up trade, and I want to be in the direction of the trend at the time until it tells me to not. I recommend channels to figure that out, like trading channels. NASDAQ 280 was a key point, but it's already been met. Similar to the SPY, I'm going to try and trust this higher low for now, but we're trading into yesterday's range. So as far as this goes, I probably want to flip sides at some point and go for another downside move. So, all right. I think that's all the time I got today. So trade safe, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Stay tuned for pre-market prep. We'll talk more in the BBT chat for anyone who wants to take a look at other stocks. And as always, I guess be careful out there, especially with our volatility. So talk to y'all next week. Have a good one.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a beautiful Thursday morning. We are here on the day after. We have no sound?
I
Should
can
have sound.
hear you, but let me see here.
Hold on. Sound.
I think you
we have
have
no
the
sound.
wrong. Can you hear me, Peter? Peter.
Oh, one sec. All right, friends on YouTube, my apologies. I need to restart our room. One second, everybody in there. All right. Hopefully now we have sound in the room.
Can you hear me, Peter? Can you hear me,
Nope.
Peter?
I can hear you, Norm.
All right, nice. Can the room hear me? Because I don't see my volume bars kicking when. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Ready to roll?
Okay.
Yeah, my camera. There was another update.
And
yeah.
Did you get that update yesterday afternoon? I went to update Windows because whenever I see a Windows update sitting there, my PC starts to act a little weird, right? So especially with DAS, I just don't like to mess around with it if I'm trading. And it was 1 o'clock. I knew the FOMC, information was coming out at 2, so I thought, let's do the update. Took over an hour. I missed the 2 o'clock excitement. Anyways, I couldn't believe how long it was.
That's no bueno.
No, so I don't know if it must have been the same update I guess you got, but yeah, it was a pain. At least it took forever. Oh well. Anyways, so with that, yes, yesterday was the long-awaited FOMC release of information from their latest meeting. We had the press conference at 2:30, the release of the summary statement, I guess, at 2 o'clock. Which caused some little market excitement, right, as we were fully anticipating. And it reacted pretty much as it always does, right? You don't know whether it's going up or down, but as we can see here, let's zoom in on this. You can see yesterday we got, right at the release of the minutes, you got the big drop in the market. It quickly recovered almost back to the exact same level it dropped from. Then at 2:30, you can see that we had the comments start, and it's a little bit after 2:30, of course, because the written comments don't usually yield any surprises. It's normally during the questions that
when they go off script.
Exactly. As soon as he goes off script, people get all excited and try and interpret what he's saying in the answer to what are usually sort of crazy questions from the media. And as you can see, that's when the sell-off began. So sell-off began. I think the press conference ended about 3:10. You guys can correct me on that. Sometime around 3 o'clock or shortly after 3. But then the market just continued its sell-off. I was able to take advantage of that with a trade on Apple, I think, is what I was trading, and a lot of members in the room were with me on that, and we took advantage of that through to the close. So anyways, sort of as expected, and here we are now on a day where so that's been released. Really, no surprises. Basically, the Fed did exactly what they had told us they were going to do. And so they did it. So now what, right? I don't know. The markets had a big pop-up, you can see, sort of at the overnight, early morning session when we opened, but we've been trending largely sideways so far this morning. So with that, maybe, Norm, I know you don't have a camera, but let's go to our market pulse, and maybe you can tell us what you see for today.
Yeah, we'll see how it pans out. We'll see if the drop holes were, flat this morning in the pre-market. We did just have jobless claims come out. They came in roughly in line with expectations. Continuing claims were a bit lower than expected and have been trending downward. Anyway, then we have leading economic indicators at 10 a.m. So nothing too crazy going on today. I think it's just going to take a little bit to see how this pans out. The overwhelming consensus of people that I hear speaking to are highly concerned about the economy and persisting inflation and the Fed moving too fast or not too much and not waiting to see what impact what they've already done and are doing will have. We'll see. It'll be interesting. We'll see how it pans out. We are just below that 380 level on SPY, which was pretty critical. So I have to think that in the not today, but in the midterm, that we'll probably test those lows that we put in June in the 360s range. So, yeah. Anyway, that's what you got.
Yeah, well, that's about right. I think we're just going to need to wait and see how this market pans out. So if we focus in on, let's focus in on the gappers for a second here, and if we do that, you can see that we got a few things gapping up, only a couple of tickers gapping down. If I just look, generally across the symbols, none of the big major companies that I would normally track are gapping. We've got Frey on here again today, a couple of miscellaneous things, but I don't think we're going to find a lot of excitement in the gappers, which means a day probably a lot like yesterday, right? Let's wait and see. That being said, I had a great day yesterday. I really did. I had one trade off the open and then a couple through the day. Patience really paid well for me, allowed me to take advantage of that. So let's see what we've got.
I do like your unbridled enthusiasm.
Well, I came into yesterday thinking, there is nothing moving. I don't know anything is going to happen until the FOMC. And I just stuck to the normal things I watch. Like I said, AMD and Apple, I got a trade on one on each of those. I think I trade LI off the open because it was moving well. I played Brian's famous Rising Devil trade. And then I think that was it. I think I had one other trade. What else? Oh, MU. Yeah, I actually took a trade on MU, which surprised me. This week has been a week for just trading the weird stuff.
Did AMD threaten you for cheating on her?
No, we have an open relationship.
Okay.
So all was good. Anyways, all right. Well, let's actually take a look at the list here and see what we've got. I'm going to start at the top here with AMPX, which is
that is not the top.
What?
Your top is different than mine. You're not sorted correctly there, brother.
How? What am I? Oh, yeah. How does this not?
Yeah, because I don't know why, but Hood's 8.5. That's very strange. There you go.
I had to re-click on it. So okay, here we go. You're right. Let's do Hood then. Into the Hood. Robinhood every once in a while pops up here. I never quite know why. Do you know why?
It's some big news this morning. Yes.
Oh, okay.
The SEC had been discussing getting rid of the ability for firms to make money, get paid for order flow, and they have decided that they are going to continue to allow pay for order flow. If they do, then Hood would, if they had gotten rid of that, Hood would be out of business because that's essentially their entire business model.
Right. Yes, indeed. Wow. Okay, that's a surprise. I didn't think they would continue to allow that. I wonder. Well, anyways, I'm sure there were some backroom pressures put upon all those in power to make a decision. So, okay. Well, interesting. I'm going to mark that down because I think that's significant for Hood. So that could show some great movement throughout today. I'm surprised, actually, then that it's only up 8%. But despite, actually now looking back on the daily, despite that bad news, because when did that come out, Norm? That was like mid-year, right? Sometime early summer, like May, June? something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Off the top of my head, that seems, somewhat right.
Yeah,
It's several months. I can't remember exactly when.
yeah, whatever it was. Anyways, I mean, if I look back through the course of this year, like Hood didn't take a huge nosedive at that news, despite the fact, as you said, Norm, like that would severely, like, basically completely destroy their business. So, anyways,
Well, let's be fair. They were already down, what, 90%?
all right. Well, that's also a fair point here because what was we had that spike peak where it went up to like $85, but yeah, the most of its trading, I would say, before it started to slide was around $40-50. But still, here we are, $10. It's up 8%, which is 80 cents. We'll see what happens today. I mean, it's looking strong pre-market, so absolutely something I will put on the list to watch. All right. While I've been talking, well, a lot of things have changed here. All right, LI is the next on my list. So like I mentioned, I had a good trade on this yesterday. I like the look of it pre-market. It's moving fairly well. It's only up 5%, 600,000 shares. I'm imagining this is probably not on any special news, but...
Yeah, they've got a 6-seat SUV that they are moving up the launch date of it, I believe.
Oh, all right. Actually,
and it's relatively reasonably priced in the mid 50,000 range.
Okay. So
I remember when $50,000 used to be fairly high for the price of a car. People considered a $50,000 car somewhat expensive. It wasn't that long ago, even, Peter.
No, like that. I would have considered that a luxury car. Like you say, not that long ago. But you're right. Luxury, you got to get into six figures nowadays. So.
Jonathan, it is ironically called the L8 or late. So it must not go very fast.
The late. Fantastic. Well, okay. So look, that's good news. And the EV sector has generally been plagued by some bad news recently with the delay of launch or lower production numbers. So the fact that they're accelerating that, might give them a good boost today. So up almost 6% on 600,000 shares. I'll definitely add that to the list. All right. AMPX is jumping around here. It keeps moving up and down this list, which doesn't get me excited about it, frankly, if it's moving that quickly. Let's see where we're at now. Up 4.8%, only 182,000 shares. I don't even know what this company is. Amprius Tech.
Yeah, it's a lithium-ion battery company based in California. It just started trading in the last, week or so? So... I don't have float info on FinViz for it. You're showing the float at 44 million. Seems reasonable because the total outstanding shares are around 100, I think. So, yeah.
I don't even remember this one IPOing. That's been common recently where we've had some things that have IPO'd almost with no announcement. They just appear one afternoon and suddenly they're trading. So this one I don't think it was ever on my list. So maybe I got to find a better data provider. But anyways, we'll figure that. AMPX then maybe a potential. I said I don't really like the price action so far, and as Norm pointed out, we really don't have a lot of information like historical information to go off of, so a little bit tough to predict it. It definitely would consider it a high-risk trade, even if it's got a reasonable float. Frey is on our list again here today, Frey. It didn't look good yesterday. It doesn't look that good to me today. Let's see what it actually did yesterday. Well, it had a steady move up yesterday, so maybe it's something I should have watched. I don't know. It's continuing its just steady grind up. Another battery company, it looks like, right? Freyr Battery something.
Yeah, it's Luxembourg. I refuse to even comment.
Okay. All right. Rio is back on the list, like we mentioned yesterday. This if Carlos would here, this would be a no. It really, doesn't do much pre-market. Just looking yesterday again, look at the action, right? It had a reaction to the Fed. I can see yesterday afternoon, but prior to that, really did not move at all. So dual listed stock here. The major miners are all on here. Interesting. Rio, BHP, and BP. Is that British Petroleum? I think it is.
Well, it used to be, but their actual name now is BP.
Oh, now they're like WW and
Yes.
Deloitte, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Fancy them. All right. Well, anyway, so look, is there mining news, or is this general excitement over the minerals, mining industry?
Um, I stay so far away from these, I don't even dig into it. But
Okay. All
copper's
right.
up, palladium's up, gold is up a
Yeah.
hair. So it's meh.
Fair enough. Okay, and that could be driving it. Both Rio and BHP are two of the world's largest multifaceted miners, so they mine a little bit of everything. Their various facilities, but yeah, and as Norm pointed out, guys, like they are really hard to trade. I just find there's always better things to trade, so barely even worth watching. NIO just popped onto the list here, 700,000 shares, but normal for it. 2% move, so that's probably why it just got to the bottom of the list, because it just got over the 2% mark. Pre-market action doesn't look great, though. This may just be a sympathy move with LI. Norm, unless you tell me there's some great news, I'm just going to move on. We can watch it if it pops onto scanners later.
I don't see anything this morning.
All right, then. So let's move to our gap down list. Only 3 offerings so far. SLNG. Stabilis Solutions, they're down a good 13% on 150,000 shares. Doesn't look like it's doing much at the moment. Had a big day yesterday, so this could just be a hangover day from yesterday's big move.
Yeah.
I don't know why
correct.
the move yesterday, but this is like the float I'm showing at 2.6 million, so super low float. Moving on. Novavax, NVAX, doesn't look great pre-market. 217,000 shares, down 5%. They've just been selling off sort of slow and steady. What did they do yesterday? Yeah, not much of a move, it looks like here. Again, seems to me like there would be better offerings out there, but whatever. Maybe
Analyst rating change sparked some of this. JP Morgan, too underweight from neutral, changing their price target to $27 from 132.
I love analysts. They are, anyways. If there's analysts out there, my apologies, but you're all ridiculous people. So seriously, you just woke up this morning and said, you know what? I think 132 might have been too high. Maybe I should move it down to 27, which, by the way, still above the current price. All right. Whatever. I'll put that on the secondary. Who knows? Maybe we can set some levels on it, but it looks like we're at some recent lows anyways. All right, last on my list is SHPS, another pharma company. It looks like Shuttle Pharma something. It's a $6 stock, trading only 100,000 shares. Pretty steady pre-market action despite the relatively low volume, but I think this has been on our list before and I ignored it then as well.
Yeah, it's a low float, so anything with a 4 million share float that's trading this low a volume is not a consideration in my book.
Yeah, agreed. So again, it looks okay pre-market, but again, the float is so low. If you like low floats, maybe this is one for you to take a look at. Doesn't float my boat this morning. Looking at our ETFs gives me an idea of where the market's going. When I looked at it first thing this morning, we were all sitting in the red. It's greening up quite nicely. A lot of green here overall in areas like the financials, industrials, and technology. Semiconductors still sitting a little bit on the red side. Metals are up, which led to some of the Rio and BHP on the list that we saw. I noticed oil and gas is also up the same amount, 1.6%. Which may mean that we should take a look at Oxy. We'll do that in a second here. Looks like Bitcoin is up, and you can see where the rest sit. So we got a nice mixed market. Maybe we'll get some movement. Like we said, the market is free from the I guess the headline news that we were waiting for on the Fed. So maybe the markets can move freely today. Oxy, like I mentioned, we'll take a look at. It's up 0.9%, so a little less than the sector overall. Pretty steady pre-market action. No, sorry, that's yesterday. No wonder I was thinking it was pretty steady. Never mind. Yeah, not looking quite as good here, but Oxy, as we know, if it's going to move, it's going to make its move during market hours. It is also a NYSE stock, New York Stock Exchange, which means they don't tend to get as much price action movement pre-market. So, Oxy might be one to take a look at. I'll put it here on the secondary. And I'll go to the room and to YouTube. Tell me what you guys are liking that we haven't already talked about. While you're queuing those up for me, I'll look at some of the normal ones I look at. I'll start at the bottom of my little list here and go up. Tesla's sitting in a range, this $300 range. I keep mentioning it. To me, that's significant that it was holding over 300. Yesterday, with the big market sell-off, I think it closed just above, like it barely held on to 300. Today, this morning, it's at 302.60. So we might get some movement on Tesla, especially with the news on LI. That can also help give Tesla a move. Its fans out there usually don't need much of an excuse to try and push it higher, so we'll see. It's certainly got a nice range to move here, right? Sitting at the low end, 302.60, like I mentioned. We've got easy movement right up to 310 this morning, so we'll see what happens on Tesla. AMD definitely sitting at the low end of a range here, just around $75. Like with most days on Tesla recently, you can see the daily chart doesn't look exciting, but I still find intraday moves on it just because I watch it so closely. But I'm waiting for some big breakout days. Yesterday, it made a little spike up before retreating back to the levels it started from. So don't know what to expect, but I'll always be watching it. Apple is the last of the three that I always keep an eye on here. It's had a little more movement recently. Yesterday, I actually had some good price action on it, so I like keeping an eye on Apple, and we'll see where it goes. All right, I see people mentioning on YouTube. We'll start there today. XPEV. Unless there's specific news, probably a sympathy play along with LI. People figure if LI is accelerating their products, some of the other, especially Chinese EVs, usually jump to follow suit, right? Because they don't want to be out-newsed or left behind. So that could be the news on XPEV, unless there's some research.
Is there news? It's only up 0.25%. There's no gap.
Yeah, good point. I mean, I guess it looks more because it started red this morning and then moved its way up back to break even. So there you go. All right. Well, I won't be putting on the list again as a sympathy play. I'm sure somebody will mention it if it starts to go crazy. Somebody's mentioning VRAX while acknowledging it's a low float. A little bit of movement's up, 17% on 1.7 million shares. So it's definitely got some volume and a little movement today. Seems to me like there's probably some news on it. Keep in mind, it is a low float. We've only got 3.5 million shares available in the float, which means this can make this one go quite crazy. If you love low floats, Norm, you're probably already long this thing.
I wouldn't touch this. This is based in the UK.
Okay.
And with the float, that means somebody with $9 million can buy the entire float. That freaks me out.
Theoretically, that's true. Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? Maybe somebody with deep pockets will do just that today and make this thing go crazy. I don't know. Where's Andrew when you need him? Anyways, all right. Norm, do you have anything that you are watching then that I haven't already talked about?
No, I'm kind of in wait and see mode.
I think that's fair. All right. Let's see here. And for anybody that follows Andrew on Twitter, and if you don't, jump in there. I think he's at Bearable Traders. He was prepping for some minor surgery today. He's over, it's elective surgery because he's in the UK. So anyways, we wish him well on that. And that's going to take him out of trading for this morning. He always sends some weird tweets sometimes. I wonder if they give him the sedatives before he tweets, or I never quite know. But
I think probably that's the case.
He was saying you would rather die than see the Fed move 1%. So you always have to take those with a grain of salt because he's never serious on that, because he's also done trading at the end of every day forever and for good. So he tells us. So there you go. I don't see any particular recommendations we haven't already looked at. In the room, they're talking about XPEV and Hood. They're talking about VRAX, which you already took a look at. CRM, somebody's mentioning. Investor Day news.
Oh, look who we have popping up on YouTube.
CRM.
What's up, Carlos? Hope you're doing well, man.
Carlos? Look at Carlos. He's seeing life from the other side. I hope you're having fun on your vacation and doing well. We're just holding the fort as you enjoy your time off. He's near the end of week 1. So on vacation, you know what? It probably feels like about 3 hours for him. That's what I usually find on vacation. You get halfway through the first week and you're like, what just happened? I was just settling in.
Considering he got there just before a hurricane hit and he had to shelter for that, I don't know that he's I don't know that he's done a bunch of fun vacation-y things, and it might have felt like 3 years.
It could be too. Spent the last week strapped to a palm tree trying to not get swept away. All right, well, somebody mentioned CRM. Anyways, back to our gappers list here and or recommended stocks. Not big volume this morning, only 81,000 shares. It is up 2%. Somebody mentioned there was investor news, so it could move. I've never been a fan of CRM. It's not moved well for me. So, if you like it, all power to you. Maybe I could put it down here in the secondary. If we have time like yesterday, I can look at setting some levels with you on it. But otherwise, yeah, it's not exciting me. Okay. All right. With that, I think that's all the stuff that's worth watching. Like we mentioned, probably going to be a wait-and-see day today, but that doesn't mean there won't be opportunity in the market. There always is if you're properly patient. So we'll take a look at all our community events and announcements here at Bearable Traders. Then we'll go and set some levels and, the usual agenda, and then we'll see what our moderators are watching to give you an indication from that side. So with that, Norm, over to you to tell us what's happening.
Every Monday, onboarding technology with Carlos, 8 p.m. Eastern. Tuesdays dedicated to strategy. Next week, we've got Andrew, 8 p.m. talking about, really, it's kind of a overall idea of his trading and how he's set up and, what he looks for and everything else. It is a 30,000 foot view of Andrew's trading. So check that out next week. Wednesday for psychology. Next week, we've got Randy Howell at 8 p.m. talking about dealing with trading when your mind's under stress, which is when you're trading. It's kind of redundant. Thursday for mentorship, John at 11, Ed at 4, Thor at 8. And then don't forget about stocktradingsimulator.com and tradingterminal.com, stocktradingsimulator.com. You can go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for our free web-based replay simulator. Hone your trading skills there. And if you'd like to try out the chat room, you can use the promo code PreMarket24 when you sign up for the intro membership. That's 7 calendar days, 5 trading days in the room. If you would change the slide, Peter. To the last one with the membership stuff. There you go. For a discount, use a promo code PreMarket24 when you sign up for the intro membership. It's 7 calendar days, 5 trading days in the room, and it is a one-time payment, not recurring. And if you'd like to get access to all the webinars, use the promo code READ50 to get the Elite Annual membership at half off and a free one-on-one coaching session with Dr. Kenneth Reed.
There you go. Sorry about that on the slides. I must have got nervous knowing that Carlos is watching. I it's hard to perform in front of the master, and I was clicking on like everything but the right slides. I was having a brain fart. Anyways, all right, we're back though. Yeah, thank you. All right, let's go through this, guys. Let's set some levels. The only thing I have on my main list are Hood and LI, and those are the two that I like best, other than, again, my regulars you can see at the top of my watch list. So let's start with those two. Hood had, look, the 8 o'clock, I've mentioned it every day this week, the 8 o'clock settlement period, right, sets that tinfoil line. I'm going to set markers here at the high and low of that, just so I can keep an eye on it. It actually brackets the price action for most of the pre-market quite well, so I will keep an eye on those levels. 10.99 is the high, and 10.49 is the low. So actually, the high should be $11 exactly. Let me reset that. So that's precise. Okay, on the daily chart, there certainly is a general level around here. Whoops, I'm going to set this here. What is the high of this? 1128. So there we go. That's where my level is. And then maybe up here at, what is this? 1161, 62. So it doesn't look like that's that's not a lot of range, frankly, on this. So we'll see what happens. It might get a kick as the markets open, or it might not. We'll have to wait and see. So, but those are the levels I've got on the upside on Hood. On the downside, I've got the lows of the previous 2 days to keep an eye on. If we break below that, I can go back and revisit. LI, we're at the low end of a range, but with good news today. So highs and lows of the previous 2 days give me some good bracketing of the current price area. If I look back on my chart, there's a gap over here. So notice how these things happen a lot. Gap over here in June, you can see on the daily price action, coincides with an area of consolidation that happened earlier in September. So that tells me that has significance. So I'm going to watch this area. The high of this is 26.57. So let me put a level right there at 26.57. And then I've got to keep an eye on the low here, which is 28.22-ish. All right, 28.22 it hit on 2 different days. So let me see if I can put a level right at 28.22, and that gives me a good area for some levels to take a look at if we get some significant rise here up above 2 days ago high and low. Actually, the 2 day ago high and low are both above the current price action. So those will be the first ports of call, if you will, or place to look, and then we'll see if we get up back into that gap range. All right, so that's good for LI. Moving down to the secondary list, a bunch of stuff I was only moderately interested in. AMPX doesn't look great, like it hasn't gotten any better really so far pre-market. If there's going to be on a level at the high of 2 days ago is a place to look at, $14 exactly. If we get higher than that, I've got this previous day at 1680. I might as well just mark that here. Like we said, not a lot of history to go on this one. So really, I think these levels are probably not that relevant, quite frankly. I think you should just watch the price action and see what it's doing sort of intraday within the day. This one candle today may prove more relevant than anything else. It sets the high of the pre-market already here at 1142. Notice it's a little bit after the 8 o'clock, but that may prove to be most relevant. So that's it for AMPX. FREY, I've largely ignored this despite it being on our list a couple of days so far this week. Price action is, again, okay, but not exciting to me. We're at the high. Are we at the all-time highs? Maybe we are. All right, based on the data I've got here, we're at all-time highs. So, that means we got little to go off of. So the high of pre-market is actually the all-time high at $16.50. Watch this thing for a breakout top. Really, we've got no levels, which means it's free to run as much as people are willing to push it. So that might make it actually a little more interesting if you like this. Low float, though. Actually, what was the float on Frey? Where is it here? Actually, not that low, almost 90 million shares. So, but I'm warming to Frey. Maybe it'll be interesting if it gets some action today. Novavax NVAX down at the low end of a range and down another almost 6% today. I think I looked at this the other day, and yeah, so we're not at all-time lows. We did have lows back in 2020 that were below this before Novavax got the big boost from all the vaccine news and COVID. It was definitely a COVID stock. So it looks like we're pulling back into the range it had been previously trading at, which means that it's got room, I think, right through here from its current price right down to $20 without interruption. I don't really see any significant levels to set here. I would just watch the whole dollar number at 20 on NVX if you're going to watch that. Oxy can be a mover this morning. We mentioned how mining and minerals were generally up. This is up just a little bit, and if it moves, we got a big range from yesterday, so that is really what I'm going to watch. Can it be? Is this going to be an inside day, meaning it'll be trading within the range it set yesterday, or will it break out top or bottom of that range? You can see it closed almost right at the low yesterday, so we got to watch yesterday's close. as Jared would call that, the king of all levels at 62.68. At the top, I would definitely watch yesterday's high at 65.96. Other than that, I would revisit it if it does anything other than just chop within this range. VRAX again on my secondary list. Interesting, but I'm not sure what to think of it. $3 stock. I think this is the one that Norm mentioned that somebody could buy with just $9 million bucks. So, the pre-market action looks okay. Let me look at a 1 minute chart on this. Yeah, see, it looks okay. It is chopping in a range. This might get some movement. Again, low float, be careful. The high of 2 days ago was $3.74, so definitely a place to keep an eye on. And then I would look at where it opened up here at 5. What am I doing? 527. So I'm going to put a level at 525. If it does start to move, I would look for some resistance there where the movement might falter. We'll see if that even happens. VRAX, again, a good secondary stock, or maybe a primary one if you like low floats. Last but not least, CRM, not a low float. I don't like the way it moves personally, and it doesn't look great pre-market. Looks to me like, again, it might be an inside day for this one as well. Just watch yesterday's high, which coincides with the high of 3 days ago. If it breaks out of that, then come back and worry about this gap when, I would, oh my God, when I would look at a low here of 154.31. I don't know if it'll even get there. Again, CRM doesn't tend to move a whole lot, but hey, people are saying that it had some news, so maybe it shall. All right, I've already set levels previous days on Tesla, Apple, AMD. I don't expect much out of them other than, again, watch. They're all sitting in inside day ranges, which means they're within the bounds of yesterday's price action. So they may just sit within that. Actually, AMD is below yesterday's close and yesterday's price range, so it may have a bottom level breakout here. I'm probably not going to trade this off the open. I'm going to wait and see what it does. If it gives sort of a pullback and then shows weakness, I might go short. It also might show some strength. I mean, we're sitting a level that might make it attractive, so just be cautious whatever you choose to do. There's no particular like incentive. There's sort of no catalyst for AMD today, so who knows where it's going to go. And Apple is sitting just within the bounds of yesterday's price action. So again, the 2 days ago low is a place to keep an eye on, and then revisit depending what happens on Apple. So that's it for that. Let me see what is happening. Do I have any of our moderators that are posting their lists? I see 2 that have got them in so far. So we'll see what else we're going to get here as a list, and then I can share that with you on YouTube or in the room. If you got any other tickers that you want me to take a look at, I will happily do that. I think for me, my list is going to consist of Hood, LI, Apple, and AMD, my good old standards. Probably it's going to be AMD, Hood, and LI on my primary. Apple, I might throw Tesla in there, and then I might keep an eye on, I don't know, one of these, probably Novavax, maybe, just to see what happens here at the low end, or Oxy. I'll make that decision as I get closer to the market open, because they might start to show some differentiation in their movement pre-market. IPOs for today, I'll keep an eye on the IPOs. There's potential to have some. I think now with that excitement over, it's more likely that some of the IPOs that we've been waiting on might come into the market. And today, what have I got here? I've got a few that are sitting here, so I'll review that and then refine that list as we get closer to the open for all of our members. So let me throw this into the room here. You can see what our moderators are potentially looking at. Thor saying he's going to watch Tesla, XPEV, Meta, and MO. Those last 2 we didn't look at, so those 2 new tickers that he's taking a look at. Mike is just going to focus on Tesla and Netflix. And Jared will be watching Oxy, Meta, and MU as his primary list, and as a secondary, NVIDIA, DWAC. Well, I'm surprised to see DWAC on there, and LI. So let's take a look at Meta. That one may be interesting here. I don't know that it's necessarily doing anything. I'm losing. Hold on, guys. Oh, I'm getting all choked up. Losing my voice. All right. Yeah, well, actually, Meta doesn't look bad pre-market. So, yeah, it might be an interesting contender for the open. So, with a couple of our moderators watching that, might be worth looking at. Megan was just saying that she's going to look at AMD, Google, mRNA, and SQ. So, 3 of those 4 we didn't even take a look at. So, as you can see, when you get markets that are not very clear on what the momentum stocks are, people revert to the things that they're comfortable with and that they like to watch. Megan, she loves to watch SQ, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's a great place, and I certainly wouldn't slight anybody who's taken a look at AMD. So as you can see, our moderators are coming in with those lists. So lots of potential opportunities. My advice would be take it slow, sort of like yesterday. But today, there's no big news event happening midday that we've got to sort of keep a sharp eye on and halt our trades for. You can pretty much trade freely throughout the day based on what the price action is. We'll see where this day takes us and what opportunity it presents. So take care, everybody. Tomorrow, last day of the week, of course, with Friday trading. Usually that means volumes are a little lower. We're coming out of the summer season, though. For those of you that have kids that are back in school, summer must feel well over for you. But from a trading perspective, I usually think the summer lasts until about mid-September, because we really start to get the fall volumes end of September, early October, as we go into that earnings season, and we head towards the end of year. So we'll see. If volumes start to pick up next week, this Friday could again be relatively quiet Friday. But hey, Fridays always have sort of a little bit of excitement somewhere. You just have to find it. Let me just, before I sign off here, Artoli is asking a question. Do you consider the daily or bigger time frames for my Mountain Pass? Artoli, my Mountain Pass strategy, I focus on intraday time frames. I use the daily to set levels, absolutely, and find ranges of support and resistance. So that's what I use it for, but I don't use it specifically for the technical setup. Other than if there's a very strong level set by the daily that might interrupt that pattern setup, then I would certainly pay attention to it, specifically at the high or low of day, at that inflection point where I'm expecting the reversal to kick off the Mountain Pass strategy setup. So, but that's how I would consider it. All right, so with that, again, have a great Thursday, everybody. We'll see you back here Friday. Remember, there is no Engineering the Markets with Jared, so we will start promptly at, right around 8:30. And have a good, safe trading day, and we'll see all of you on YouTube then. In the room, we'll probably have Brian joining us, and I'm not sure, maybe Jared or Thor. Somebody will be jumping in anyways to trade with Brian through the open. And we'll see what they find and what opportunity they take advantage of. So take care, everybody. Have a great day. Talk to you later.